How's it going, listeners? Welcome to Across the Bifrost. My name is Ryan Doze. I am your host. Today, part 2 of our interview with Mackenzi Lee is here. She tells more stories. We talk about the book. We go in depth on all the things that made this book come together. And she tells a story about the time she interacted with one of the Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm not going to lie, you do not want to miss that part of the interview. Later on, we're also going to talk about the finale of Loki. Episode 6 is here. All the insanity that came from it has just sunk in, and we're going to talk and review, break that apart. It was phenomenal. I hope you saw it. Man, I mean, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is never going to be the same. It's never going to be the same, and you don't want to miss our breakdown of that episode. Some ways that you can support the show to keep this great streak of shows coming is going to iTunes, subscribing, rating, reviewing us, telling us what you like about the show. We want to keep giving you shows that you enjoy, so tell us what you like there in the reviews on iTunes. And then you can go follow us at Across the Bifrost on Instagram. You can talk with us about Loki anytime you want. Our DMs are always open. We always want to talk about Thor, his world, and Loki, so be sure to go there. Give us a follow. We would love to chat with you on that platform. Here is one announcement you need to know going forward. We have a great show lined up next Monday. We are doing a panel discussion breaking down the entire run of Loki on Disney Plus, all 6 episodes, with the reviewers that we've had come on the show every single week to break down individual episodes. We're coming back. We're all getting together, and we're going to talk all about Loki. No script, no plan. We're just going to talk about Loki until we can't break it down anymore. And if you want to be a part of that show, you can totally have your voice heard on that episode. Go to the link in the description for this episode. Leave a voice message and you'll be a part of the show. That would be so cool if you got to be a part of the show with us. So go do that. Submit your opinion, your thought, your theories about what's going to happen next with Loki. What's going to happen with the Marvel Cinematic Universe? There's so many possibilities and we want to hear what you have to say for that episode next Monday. But today is big. Part 2 of our interview with Mackenzi Lee. I will not waste any more time. I want to get to this interview, so enjoy this talk, and I will see you at the end of the episode. Well, and for someone like me who's like I'm always trying to learn more about Thor and his world, and he's my favorite character. I felt really great when you included Karnilla, the Norn Queen, in the book. Because here's the thing, like Thor and Loki, like they're always pitted up against these big monsters or like these conniving, like dark versions of elves or something like that. But like Karnilla and Gamora are such great, like. And I wouldn't even, like, after reading your book, I wouldn't even classify them as specifically villains. They're just such great characters around, kind of like rotating around, main characters like, Thor and Loki. But I love that Karnilla just gets kind of tossed in there. She's not big, at the front of the whole story, but she's just like, yeah, she's right there. And I really enjoyed her inclusion.
It's pivotal in a small way. So for your listeners, the sort of the foil to Loki in the book is Amora the Enchantress, who's a character that exists in a lot of the comics but hasn't shown up in any of the films or TV shows. There was some speculation pretty early on that Sylvie in the Loki TV show was actually Amora.
I was in that camp.
Well, I immediately had like panic about that. I was like, oh no, did I like step on, did I run over somebody's plot line without realizing it? And because again, Marvel is huge and writing for them is so cool, but nobody talks to each other. Like the comics people don't talk to the book people don't talk to the movie people. So I found out I think it was like halfway through writing the book that they were doing the TV show. And I tried to get any details and they were like, we don't know. Like we would tell you if we knew, but we don't know. And so I was like, well, let's just hope this all. And then at one point I saw something about it being like it was one of those things where I was trying to like keep an eye on it, but not too closely because I would psych myself out. And there's like something at one point that they were like, it's a time travel show. And I was like, oh God, no, like that's no. I'm like, what? no, but it's not. We're fine. It's all good.
Good screw up everything.
Yeah, we're fine. I was like, don't do the same thing I did, but better. That was my great fear, was I was going to watch the
Oh
Loki
my
series.
gosh.
So here's a better version of what I did. And then, anyways, but so Amora the Enchantress is sort of the main foil that he has in the book. And she actually did kind of come from my editor and come from the people at Marvel. With every book I've done for them now, there have been, I say, like, they give me a lot of freedom, which they do, but they always bring sort of like, here's a couple of things we would love if you would include. And for this one, it was, here's something we would love if you would include. We would love Amora to be, whether a antagonistic force or a force for good, either way, do whatever you want. My editor's a big fan of her character and was like, I'd love to get Amora in here.
Well, so me and your editor would get along just fine, because Amora is one of my favorite Thor characters.
Rad.
Because again, just a little bit of a soapbox for me. She does not approach Thor the way any other villain does. She is very like subversive, and I loved how like you even brought that out with her in this book. And that's actually, so this book I saw as it's unfolding in front of me, I'm like, okay, in my interpretation of this, I'm just like, okay, Loki has relationships with so many people, you know, new relationships and old relationships. I just kind of wanted to knock through a few of those, and Amora is like the first one that we get a lot of attention to, you know, with the feast scenes, and you know, going after the God's Eye mirror and then breaking the God's Eye mirror, just that whole little first few chapters. So when Amora's brought in, you were like, what was the approach to that character, because she's very important to the story?
Yeah, you said you mentioned the way she fights Thor is different than everyone else. Part of the appeal for me is that she fights like Loki.
Oh gosh,
So
yeah.
the same way we're seeing in the TV show right now, like part of the reason, and again, we haven't seen the last episode, I don't know where it goes. I love Sylvie and I love Loki and Sylvie together, and I love this like non-romantic chemistry and attachment they have to each other pretty much immediately, because it's this feeling of like not being lonely for the first time in your life, and it's the first time you find someone who understands you in a world where you did not think anyone else was like you. And that's kind of the role Amora serves for Loki in the early days of the book, in his early days of life, even though he's like not a real person. But in the book, he's a weird, awkward teenager, and he's like, I'm skinnier than everybody. I'm not a fighter. I get tired lifting broadswords. Like Sif beats me up. I don't know, like, how do I fit in this court of warriors, essentially? And then Amora comes along, and she's also kind of this like slippery magician who has the same sort of power as him, but has been taught to hone it more than he has. Whereas he's sort of been like encouraged by Odin, like, no, like try the warrior thing, like try and be like Thor. Let's try and all be the same kind of person. Amora comes in with the same power he has, but she's been taught to use it, and she knows what the potential it has too. And she kind of pushes his buttons in the right way and tempts him into, she enables his more chaotic, trickster, mischievous, evil side. And then over the course of the book, it's sort of like, is that necessarily a bad thing? Is that inevitably what he's going to, so she becomes yet another force of like, are you someone I kind of had to meet along the way to bring this side out in me? But then also becomes kind of, as she is in the comics, she's an antagonist to him, and she's a foil against him as well. So while Loki's still kind of, he has a little bit more of I think he has more alliances, more allegiances, more relationships. He has, as much as he doesn't want to, like, he has a relationship with Thor, and Thor's his brother, and he has a family, and he has a people and a community. Even if he feels like an outsider in that community, they're still his. Where Amora is an orphan, she's a sorceress, she doesn't have anybody. She answers pretty much only to herself. And that has brought out sort of a different, it's that same, they both have the quality of being outsiders, but it's brought out a different personality trait in each of them.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say that thing about that them being outcasts, like especially in the court, at the beginning of the book, and okay, I get this friendship. Like, she is like no one Loki's ever seen before, and he kind of, you kind of give it like a juxtaposition of like, well, Thor and Sif have their thing, and it's very, that's who, that kind of coupling,
Yeah, it's the jock dating the head cheerleader.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's
to meet in the manga section of the library. Like if we're gonna do like a high school dynamic. And I think
exactly
with Loki and Amora too, you have this, I don't know if technically she's older than him, but she's farther along in her like magical education than he is.
Yeah.
And so he also looks up to her a little bit as like, it's like that cool, the cool senior when you're a sophomore, that you want to be their friend, but also you kind of want to be them. And also you kind of want to make out with them. And it's all like all these things kind of overlap. But mostly I think it has a lot to do with when you see someone take the things about you that you think are weird and unlovable and make you like too strange to exist, and then makes them beautiful and powerful and makes them a source of strength. That's for Loki, that's what he sees in Amora. And it's a totally new world for him, is these things that have made him so weird and such an outcast, when she wears them are things that wears metaphorically, when she uses them, are things that make her strong and brilliant and unique and a force and a warrior.
So speaking of wearing things, not just metaphorically, one of my favorite moments, like it's a kind of like a little like joke that shows up throughout the book, is that Loki wears Amora's boots. Yeah. I loved that so much. And like, and Loki throughout the rest of the book, even when he's not with Amora, he's like, man, I really do love those boots. Like, that was one of my favorite little jokes that showed up throughout.
Did I mention one of my biggest influences for this book was Devil Wears Prada?
I love Devil Wears Prada. Now I'm gonna have to go watch Devil Wears Prada tonight.
I also just watched Cruella, which I adored, and fantastic. I feel like we can do a little Venn diagram with Loki and Cruella, with just like fantastic goth fashion in the middle. Yes, he does. He wears her boots. He kind of, there's some allusion in the first little chapters that when she's living in the Asgardian court, he kind of starts dressing like her and kind of adopts her style a little bit, to the point that he's literally stealing clothes from her wardrobe. And this goes back to kind of what I was saying, that he's like, I don't know if I want to be you, or if I want to make out with you, or if I want to just like be in your gang, or am I like your sidekick? Are we partners? Like, it's the sort of like nebulousness of the relationship.
So going into I want to talk the layered love stories, in like, whether it's a deep friendship love or a romantic love. I would love to hear you expound a little bit on that. But like, there's two love stories in this book that you approach, Theo and Amora, and I just kind of wanted to hear maybe why two different like stories in the book, and how did that unfold for you as you're writing these two parallel kind of attractions?
So for your listeners who haven't read the book, Theo is a member of this like of a Ghostbuster society, essentially down on Earth, loosely inspired by that Harry Houdini team. Awesome. Like a small what's the word? Startup? I don't know, like a ghost hunting startup.
They're an interdimensional startup.
Yeah, they're kind of agents of Odin on Asgard, but also it's more like they found out about Odin accidentally, and he's like, okay, so go stay busy, stay out of my way, don't bug me. And so he's part of this little squad down there that is working to keep supernatural forces out of Midgard. And yeah, later in the book, as we get into Victorian England, Amora's there, and then also, I'm not sure how spoilery should I be on this?
You can be as spoilerly as you want.
Okay. Well, we'll see how much of the book I remember. That'll really define how many spoilers I remember.
I can help. I just finished it for the second time.
I was gonna say, you probably have a better memory than I do. But so Theo is anti-Amora. He brings out the opposite things in Loki. He brings out humanity and brings out sort of a larger. Theo's also somebody, he's a gay man in Victorian England, so he's had like incredibly bad things happen to him because of things he can't control, and still come out of that situation soft and kind and loving and ready to like, which is something I think Loki is struggling with too, is like, how do I process emotional abuse? How do I process a childhood that really roughed me up and feel, and so he sees in Theo, much like Amora, another outsider, but somebody whose outsider status or outsiderness has made them into a totally different person than Amora. Amora has become kind of vengeful and bitter, and she acts in her own self-interest, whereas Theo has somehow found a way to still keep his vulnerability, I guess. And so that was part of it, was the juxtaposition of those two love interests for Loki represent, this feels very like literature class in college, and I like talked about my books this deep. But for me, they represent these two dueling forces within him, which is, am I a good guy or am I a bad guy? And honestly, the answer is somewhere in between. But at the time, he's living in a world of heroes and villains, and feels like he has to pick a side, and maybe that side has already been picked for him. And does he get a say in who he gets to be? And so you have, Theo and Amora, who bring out two different sides of him, encourage two different things in him, and who both, I think, also know something about his future. Because Amora was part of seeing this prophecy, and Theo has all these stories from Norse mythology. And so they both see where he could end up and they almost know more about him than he does in a lot of ways. So that's part of the answer. The other, maybe more on the nose part of why we had two love interests, is because I wanted to write about Loki as a bisexual person, a bisexual gender fluid being. And I really wanted to write a queer relationship in Marvel, which is not something we see super often. And Loki as a character has been gender fluid and bisexual or pansexual. They're both words I think that get associated with him a lot. Has been that way since the poetic sagas from the Norse myths, and just gets left out. It was amazing how many people sent me homophobic messages when the book first got announced, with like the headline. I mean, I'm not surprised at all. I'm like, I've been writing queer fiction for long enough that I'm like, I get it. Like this is kind of expected. But it was interesting to me how many people are like, why are you bringing your gay agenda to Marvel? And I'm like, dude, first of all, I think Al Ewing did it or Jack Kirby, somebody. I was like, I'm not the first person to bring this in. But second of all, like if you're not talking about that with Loki, you're not understanding that character and that fluidity, and that the sort of nebulous nature of his identity is so intrinsic to who he is. So that's the self-serving reason why I love interest, is I wanted to write a really explicitly bisexual book that I didn't want to do like a female, like a really explicit female love interest, and then like a relationship between two men that you could kind of like, it's kind of queer coded. Like I wanted both of these to be explicitly romantic relationships.
So I'm not gonna spoil the ending of the book, because I really do want people to go read this book. The way how do I say this in a very non-spoilery way? The way that Loki and Theo end up at the end of the book was so emotional.
I do remember that part because of how many upset messages I get saying, how could you do this?
I was like, so to me, I was like, I'm getting towards the end, and I'm like, okay, Loki makes the promise, but Loki's a liar at heart. Like, so I was like, oh no, Mackenzi, you're gonna do it to us.
But that's why I think anti-heroes are so fun to read or to write about, is because like when you have someone like Thor, you know he's always going to do the right thing. It might be like a moment of turmoil where he has to decide between his own self-interest or between saving Jane and saving Asgard, but you know he's always going to do the right thing. Someone like Loki, you don't know. Like these choices become, I think in fiction, lots of these, like the big choices that these characters have to make, it's sort of like, okay, I know there's a right answer. You can struggle with it, and that struggle will be interesting for the plot, but like in the end, we know what you're going to do. Whereas with characters like Loki, you never know. Like they could legitimately go either way, and that would be totally within the realm of their character. And that's part of why I think this series has been, for me, just the most fun thing to do, is that I have these characters that make the subtitle of the series could be no happy endings. Like everybody's making all the wrong decisions.
Everybody ends up sad.
Yeah. Like really, I'm working on the third one right now, and it's like, well, this is not going to be any happier than any of the other ones have been.
So like, but if anyone's listening and they think like, oh well, like if it's a sad ending, like why should I read the book? It is the books are well, this book specifically is so satisfying though, but it's satisfying in a way that I didn't expect. Because like I was like, how's this gonna
Like
wrap up to
follow me around and pep talk me all the time. Goodness gracious, you like have said all the kindest things.
and
I'm
the
so
thing
glad
is,
you liked the book.
I like I was telling my wife this the other day. I was like, I think you should read this. And she's like, well, you've been talking about it for the last week, so I almost don't think I have to read it.
I feel like
But
you have.
there is this conversation that Theo, and talking about your plan, like here's what I want to do when it comes to sexuality and relationships in this book. You include this conversation with Theo and Loki, and I don't remember what chapter it is off the top of my head, but where Loki's like, oh yeah, what you guys think is super abnormal here, like we don't even really talk about on Asgard. And I think it, you know, it it projects this utopia for Theo where he just is like, oh, take me with you.
Yeah.
And like you hurt for Theo so much. And like yeah, I thought that cool little conversation they have about norms and taboos was really, really important to the characters.
Well, I think
Um,
that's an ongoing thing in Marvel across the comics, the books, the movies, everything is the need for more representation, because whether it's of sexuality, it's gender, it's race, like all of these different things. Because when we're telling people like, here is the biggest fictional universe that maybe has ever existed with the most creators, the most characters, and there are aliens, there are spaceships, there are interdimensional travel, but there's no gay people. Like, what are we telling, especially like young queer people? Like, you're telling them that they are so outlandish and strange that even in this world of like phantasmagorical magic stuff, you cannot conceive of a world with gay people in it, which is patently absurd.
yeah,
And the idea that there are all of these many realms and worlds and dimensions, but all of them have the same ideas about gender and sexuality that Earth does. Like, it's such a, I mean, we talk about like Western centric ideas of literature. It's such a Midgardian centric idea of all of these things. And yeah, that conversation, that chapter in the book is one of my favorites for that exact reason, which I hope that it not only acknowledges it within the context of the story, but also like within the context of the larger Marvel universe. Like, not every world is like this. And I think too, as someone, I grew up in a very conservative religious community. I'm a bisexual woman and came out as an adult. For me, for a long time though, as I existed within this religious community, I was sort of that is not accepting of LGBTQ people. And it was sort of like, so how do I reconcile who I am with this world that I'm living in? Like, I can't change my community, I can't change these people around me. And this is sort of what I ended up transposing onto Theo then, is this feeling of like, my world is not going to change and I am not going to change. So what do I do?
yeah.
And so yeah, for Theo, that becomes sort of this like, it's a wish fulfillment, it's a utopia. And for like 17 or 18-year-old me, it would have been the same way. Like, can
Yeah,
you just take me to another world where this isn't an issue? Like, I don't want to deal with it in this
yeah.
world. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with having to fall out with people, with having to pick one thing over another, to having to broadcast these things about myself. Like, I just want to go somewhere where it doesn't matter. And that's not our reality still.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but it's not the world we live in. And I get that. And I think a lot of queer people understand that, wanting to go somewhere where it's just not a big deal.
The,
Um,
you talked about, you mentioned just briefly there, like Marvel being this expansive, you know, it's a fictional universe, but that doesn't mean that it's not real. Like,
yeah.
because like we're about to, so you know, I know this is a Thor centric podcast, but you know, let's go off the range a little bit. We're, you know, we live in a world where like Black Panther was the biggest hit of the year when it came out. Shang-Chi is about to come out and shed light on a community that is underrepresented in Marvel across the board. So this idea that Marvel can be for everybody, and when someone listens to this or sees your account on online and says, "Oh, I wonder if I can see myself in Loki," like that to me, like, would be just kind of a cool thing. Like someone reaches out to you and they're like, thank you for this book, because I got to see myself in this book.
I've gotten those emails, and they remain like the most incredible part of my career. And it's the sort of thing where it's like, if I don't do anything else with my life, like I'm glad that for these 5 or 10 or 20, I don't know how many people, but like the fact that I've been able to be part of a coming out journey, a self-acceptance journey, or even just like seeing yourself represented is, it sounds so cheesy, but it's such a privilege, and it is the best part of my job and my career. I just had a letter from a trans kid who has just chosen their new name, and they chose a name from my Gentleman's Guide series, because
Awesome.
those books, they said, were like the first time that they saw any kind of queer rep and saw things like PTSD represented. And they really like connected with these books, and they'd been sort of a bright spot through this really tough transition and through tough stuff with their family. And that, like, I get choked up thinking about it. Like, that is the most incredible honor. And I'm so lucky to get to be that for so many, not for so many, that's not what I say. I'm so lucky to get to be that for people who see themselves in this book. And I hope that it's starting a bigger conversation, a bigger movement within Marvel. I know that, like, I won't sugarcoat it. It took some fighting with the Marvel people, who have to like approve everything that goes out with the Marvel stamp on it. And it was not an easy. I kind of used up all my aces on that fight. I was like, we got to have this in here. We got to have this conversation. We got to have this kiss. I want to make this, like, this stuff needs to be in the book. And I was lucky. I had some backup, and we made it happen. But now we just saw it on the TV show, and like, it was a 5-second moment, but man, like, like the fact that it ended up in the TV show. I was DMing with the showrunner, Kate Herron, and I just said something to her like, thank you for putting that in there, because that probably wasn't easy based on my experiences. I hope I made it a little bit easier for her. I hope she made it a little bit easier for whoever comes next, but also, like, it's still a fight. I wish it wasn't.
By the way, that is a great little, like, so I was messaging with the person that runs Loki, and I thought you were going to be like, so me and Tom Hiddleston were talking. And
so my favorite, well, first of all, I have 2 stories on this. Sorry, we're going way off track.
No, that's fine. This is
the first story is
great stuff.
So a couple of weeks before Gamora and Nebula came out, people are getting their pre-copies, and there's like pre-pub stuff coming out. And so I was getting a lot of, like, I was getting tagged in a lot of stuff, and especially on Instagram, it gets kicked into your, like, you're not following this person, they're not following you, maybe spam messages. And I don't always look at those. But I looked at one day, and I didn't even look who it was from. And it was just like, somebody had posted, and they were like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this book. I can't wait to read it. Congrats, Mackenzi. I was like, Zoe Saldana? Is this a, like, fan account? And then I looked at it, and it's like 7, and I like threw up. Not really, but felt like I was going to.
Oh my gosh.
Reposted it, and then, like, DM'd with Zoe Saldana for a little bit, and was like, how'd you find out about this? Because the other thing too is they keep all the sides of Marvel really, really separate. So, like, the press side doesn't, like I said, doesn't interact with the movie side, doesn't interact with, and they want to kind of keep you apart. And there's some, like, weird, I think, internal politics there. But so I had asked at one point, like, could we see if, like, Karen or Zoe would be interested in doing the audiobook for Nebula and Gamora, especially because we're in a pandemic and, like, nobody's working. And Marvel was very like, nope, not even going to ask them. They don't need to know this exists. And Zoe found it because her mom saw it on, like, Gizmodo or something, and said,
oh, that's awesome.
This is so precious. So yeah, that was like the most surreal moment of my life, was like, and I, like, sent her a copy, and it was wild.
Oh my gosh, that
I'm
wow.
at the post office mailing a book to Zoe Saldana, and I just, like, I kept looking at the post office clerk who's, like, scanning it, and I'm just like, see who I'm sending this to?
Yeah, I'm really doing this, man. Well, so okay. Well, I just know.
Wait, that was my first story.
I'm so sorry. So sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're totally fine. This is just, like, my favorite story ever. So when you tell people you write for Marvel, they immediately think movies, and so often people will just, like, bypass all the leading questions and just be like, so Chris Evans, you know Scarlett Johansson, like insert person here. And I'm like, no, I don't. And so when I tell people I write Loki, I got a lot of, oh, so you know Tom Hiddleston? I'm like, I don't.
Like your best friends.
Oh, yeah. They should be like, oh yeah, Tommy. But so my friend and I were, right after I got the job, my friend and I were down in Costa Rica on a vacation, and she's an English teacher, I'm a writer. We ended up doing like a stand-up paddleboard trip, and with this guy who, bless his heart, he was so sweet, but he was like the opposite side of the spectrum that we are in terms of personalities. Like he's like this surfer bro from like California who like took his trust fund to open a surf shop in Costa Rica and like never wears shoes, and he was very sweet, like a different kind of person than we are. And so we had this long ride to the beach where we were going to paddleboard, and we're like, my friend Hannah, bless her heart, is like making conversation with him and trying to find common ground, and it's just not happening. And then she had this moment where she kind of goes, oh, Mackenzi. And I think in her brain, she was like, he's like a 20-something man. He probably loves Marvel. She's like, Mackenzi, tell him what you do, tell him what you write. And I was like, oh, I write for Marvel. And he sort of was like, oh, what do you write for Marvel? And I was like, I'm writing about Loki right now. And his whole face lights up, and he's like, that's Loki, that's Tom Hiddleston in the movies, right? And I was like, yeah, oh my gosh, like we found something, we're gonna bond. And he goes, I've never seen him, but we just had him here. I just had him on one of our tours. Can you tell him I said hi? And I was like, oh no, you totally misunderstood this. How is your connection to this not Marvel? Your connection is Tom Hiddleston, and you'd apparently just given Tom Hiddleston like a Costa Rica tour. It's like, oh no. You probably have his number. I definitely don't.
Yikes. Oh my gosh.
Like, oh, we're trying so hard. It just went off the rails.
Maybe someday. Maybe.
We'll see.
So I wanted to hit on two more things from the book, and then talk maybe a little bit about Gamora and Nebula, your book that just came out recently. Thor is what's so crazy about this is Thor is a supporting character in this book.
It's never happened to him before.
It never happens. So Thor and Loki's relationship, you're going into this and you're telling the other side of the story. What did you envision for their relationship as brothers, this sibling rivalry on steroids kind of thing?
Yeah, I kind of leaned into the Thor as like, I'm so sorry, I know he's your favorite, but like Thor as dumb meathead jock and Loki as like greasy misunderstood emo kid. And that was kind of what I think, especially because the dog's walking by again, a small bear wandering through my office.
Small bear, yes.
I think especially because they're teenagers, it was easier to lean into those sort of like almost the like high school tropes for them, or the high school stereotypes. And they're still, again, they're early in their relationship. So they're sibling rivals, but not, the rivalry is still forming, I guess, in a lot of ways. And so Loki still feels like maybe there's a shot that I might someday be king, and like, no shade to Thor, but I wouldn't mind being king. And then he's sort of slowly starting to realize like, no, this game is rigged. I'm totally set up to fail. And then that resentment towards Odin kind of ends up transferring over to Thor, and this resentment over, yeah, you've rigged this game for me. There's no, you're making me jump through all these hoops, and I'm never going to get anything out of it. Like, again, how this ends, which is with Thor being king of Asgard. So why are you making me do all of this humiliating crap that I'm not good at? And that resentment transfers over a little bit to Thor. And so we see that kind of starting to happen in the book, but they're also still brothers. They've grown up together. They know each other. They've been mean to each other. They've helped each other. Like, I think there's, oh gosh, now see, I'm like, I can't remember if this is in the book or not, if it ended up in the final draft. There's like a part where Loki tells Thor to like pick up his clothes off the floor, like pick up his towel off the floor, or else it's gonna like mold or something like that. And for me, that was like, they're siblings. And for me, that was a really important part too, is that they've grown up together and they know each other, not just as warriors and not just as rivals and not just as contenders for a throne, but they know each other as people and as brothers and as humans, as guardians.
Yeah, as whatever they are. Yeah. Well, and like what I thought was so cool was before they were fighting these cosmic battles over the 9 realms, they were just kids. Like, yeah. And I think like, especially in the first few chapters, their little like side adventure in Alfheim is kind of fun, because Loki follows all the etiquette. Thor follows none of it, and he gets away on charm alone. And
Yeah.
Loki is just like, I put in work here. Like, at least pretend to do the work.
Yeah. I know
And
Thor's got a little bit of like in 30 Rock where they talk about like the handsome guy bubble. Like Thor lives in that like handsome, charming, and also like he is what people think of when they think of Prince of Asgard or son of Odin, and Loki is so not. And so he's sort of working against, he walks into a room and people already have their hackles immediately go up because they're like, oh, you're not the greasy beanpole that I expected to be coming on behalf of Odin. Um, yeah, that's
so you spoke of Odin, and I'm going to get to him in a second. One thing I just like, these, since it's a YA novel and you were writing essentially like older high school kind of aged characters,
yeah,
is what I interpret it as.
yeah.
I saw Breakfast Club unfolding in Asgard. Like, I saw like Amora and Loki as more the Judd Nelson, Ali Sheedy kind of side of it, and then Thor and Sif are like,
That
they're Emilio Estevez and Molly Ringwald. But
exactly.
that's just like my little like visualization of that.
Now I can tell people if you like Devil Wears Prada and if you like The Breakfast Club, you'll love
You're
Loki.
gonna love this book. So Odin, as far as relationships in the book, I know that so many relationships were manifested onto the pages. I really gravitated to Loki's scenes with Odin, because they seemed so formative for who Loki ends up as. And I'm calling up chapters now because I actually wrote these ones down. But in chapters 10 and 35, there's the conversation right before he goes to Midgard, and then there's 35. Yeah, there we go. For those of you that she's got the books displayed in the background. So chapter 10, before he gets sent off to Midgard, they have this like great, like, you give Thor endless chances to win something that I feel like I'm already in last place for. And then 35 is the culmination of the book, and it ends in a kind of an Odin speech that Loki responds to. I just, their relationship fascinates me, so I was wanting to know if you just like maybe like that father son dynamic. How did you want that to be represented in the book?
I'm not a big fan of Odin as a dad.
He's an asshole.
Yeah, not a great father figure.
He's
There's
not Anthony Hopkins from the movies. Like,
though my sister, who's also a big Marvel fan, when pretty early on in this project, she sent me like a Tumblr post that it was like Odin saying like, I love all my children equally, Thor, and looks at smudged writing on hands, lolly. Like that's very much what it feels like. Or someone else there was one that was like that from Ragnarok, when in the movie when Odin dies and he's like, I love you, my sons. And he's like, Thor and Larry, like it's Loki.
Thor and Larry.
Very much like what it feels like.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's such a weird thing with Loki too, because it's like you saved this kid, like, and then you just torture him, like, and at this point in his timeline in the book, Loki doesn't know he's adopted. He doesn't know he's not Odin's son, and so it's the sort of the strangeness feels even more pronounced in the distance from between him and Odin, and who he is and who Odin is, and who Odin holds up as sort of an idealized son and an idealized warrior of Asgard. And yeah, he's not a great, but also I think throughout the book, Loki not knowing whether Odin actually has any faith in him as a hero, as a good guy, as like, that's sort of the pervading question of the book. Is we start with this big prophecy about Loki doing something bad, and then Loki's always wondering, like, not only is this an inevitable thing that I'm going to end up doing no matter what I choose, does also, it says a lot about the people around me whether or not they believe this too. And so he's not only sort of weighed down by this prophecy, but he's weighed down by the fact that people hear that he's going to be the fall of Asgard, and he's like, then they're all like, yeah, checks out.
That sounds right.
So yeah, that becomes kind of a defining feature of his relationship with Odin in this book, is he's like, the thing that's not, it's not important that you had a prophecy of me destroying Asgard. The thing that's important is you believe that that could happen, and that you're like, yeah, we got to take care of this. We got to make sure this doesn't happen. Like you're fortifying against it. Yeah, I'm not a big Odin fan, but I do think his his terrible parenting is very formative to Loki. Again, it goes back into that thing of like in trying to change what you think is an inevitable future, you end up playing into it in his sort of like bad parenting and trying to make Loki into this version of a son that he isn't. He ends up pushing him sort of in the opposite direction.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what Loki becomes, I think you can pin on Odin.
Oh yeah.
And I had this feeling throughout the entire book, like, okay, what is it that Odin doesn't trust about Loki? And every single thing I kept coming up with was like, oh, the thing he doesn't like about Loki is that he's not Thor.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all it comes back to.
Yeah. Odin has an idea of what his heir, his son, his kids in general, who that person is. There's an idealized, and Odin sort of is this idealized Asgardian warrior, and he is the default Asgardian warrior, pinnacle, whatever. And so he wants his sons to be that too. And Loki's not. Like he's not a tough guy. He can't take a punch. He fights from a different place of strength. He's kind of wily and cunning and leans into his meanness a little bit more and manipulates people. And rather than accepting these things about his kid and learning to love them and helping him embrace them, like, not that you ever want to embrace your sliminess, but still, Odin's like, we just got to get rid of this. And so he's immediately telling Loki, in the way we talked about earlier, like, you're too weird, you're too strange, I don't know what to do with you, nobody's like you don't fit in. So Loki spends all this time trying to cram himself into this impossible mold, and then meets Amora and is like, oh no, I'm not totally strange, here's this other person who's like me and she's amazing, so I can also be amazing. So yeah, it's all Odin's fault. That's weird.
That's essentially what we've been getting at for the longest time. It's all Odin's fault. I just wanted to.
I said that it was Odin all along. Thing there.
So I want to wrap up here, but like, my gosh, it would be a travesty if I had someone who's written Loki and I didn't ask her about the Loki TV show. Like,
it's on everybody's minds right now. I dream of alligator Loki.
Who doesn't? Like, so and I love that, like, I even saw, like, in your Amora character, I was like, oh, like, that's a Sylvie thing, or like vice versa, and like their chemistry is so great. I just thought that was kind of cool as well.
I'm like, Loki is doing a heist on a train with a beautiful blonde woman who's kind of another version of himself. Like, some sort of mind melding synthesis went on here.
So, Mackenzi, we're gonna let you go, but I just wanted you to maybe, if you want to hype the current book that you have out, the Sisters in Arms, Gamora and Nebula book, or tell people where to find your books. Kind of the rest of our time is yours. Just hype it up.
Yeah. So yeah, Loki, Where Mischief Lies is available from fine booksellers everywhere, wherever books are sold. The second book in the series, it's a series only in that they're all about Marvel antiheroes as teenagers. They're not actually related to each other. So the second book is called Gamora and Nebula, Sisters in Arms. It is about Gamora and Nebula, as implied by the title. And it's about them as, again, sort of younger versions than we've seen them in the movies, which is the incarnation that the comics are now drafting off of and that most people are familiar with. I've been saying, as I've been talking about this book, it just came out, so I've been doing a lot of promo for it. In the movies, when we first meet Gamora and Nebula, we see them as having recognized abuse in their life and trauma that has sort of shaped their childhood, but they're still figuring out how to like deal with it. In this book, they are recognizing the fact that there was abuse, and they're starting to see sort of abuse and trauma, and starting to recognize the lies that have formed their relationship and their rivalry that they took as fact. So it is a space western, drafting on my favorite things like Firefly and Dune and Mad Max and
Star Wars.
Star Wars, yeah, there's definitely some Star Wars in there. Like, it's all it's my influences are very apparent. But yeah, it's a space western set on this this desert planet that used to be lush and green and has now been strip mined into nothing because of a renewable resource that is found in its crust. And so it's set on this sort of desolate mining station. Gamora is sent to this planet to on a mission for an unknown benefactor, unknown employer, with the assignment to retrieve the heart of the planet. So she has to figure out how to do that. She ends up allying herself with a group of miners who are trying to save the planet before it is destroyed beyond the ability to do that. And then, of course, Nebula is hot on her tail because everywhere Gamora is, Nebula is. And Nebula ends up aligning herself with the aforementioned Universal Church of Truth. And of course, they come together and start to recognize they are pawns in a larger cosmic game, as they so often are. So yeah,
and scene.
It's a different book from Loki in that it is pure sci-fi. There's no Earth time. There's no Midgard scenes. But it's very, very based in the American West. I grew up in the West, and so I feel like that, like, desert Red Rock is very much part of me, and also the deconstruction of the myth of the American West, and sort of starting to recognize as I've gotten older, how many people had to be exploited and killed and stepped on and stolen from in order for that myth of the American West to continue. So it's got the historical tie-in, even if it's not actually on Earth.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm excited to read that book now. Mackenzi, thank you so much for hanging out with us over the last little bit.
Lovely. You are my new favorite book critic. I'm gonna just start sending you chapters and be like, just tell me I'm beautiful. Tell me this is great. Tell me all the wonderful things I'm doing without even realizing I'm doing it.
And I will gladly do it. Thank you for this time, and we will hopefully see you down the road.
Yeah, see you when book 3 comes out.
Awesome.
Okay, everybody, before we get out of here on this episode, we absolutely have to talk about the finale of Loki. And I brought on one of the biggest Marvel fans I know to talk about this monumental episode of Loki, welcoming my friend Jed Shermer to the show again. He was on our All Father's Day special, so if you haven't heard him, go back and listen to that. But now we're talking about Loki. Let's get focused. Jed, what did you think of the finale of this awesome show?
Yeah, I was just blown away by
no joke, right?
Oh yeah, like by just so many different things. And I think the major aspect that just blew my mind is like how many finales of a show are mainly exposition and are so amazing.
Right?
Like there's so little action, but I didn't care at all.
No. Like literally the whole episode, outside of like the fight scene between Loki and Sylvie at the end, was just a conversation.
Yes. Yep.
Like, that's insane to me. Like, we get beyond the void and literally we're just like, what's going to happen? 3 characters are going to sit in a room and talk for a while.
Right. Yes.
So, I mean, okay. So let's break this down. We get to see the one who exists beyond the veil. It's he who remains. But let's be honest. We got to see Kang the Conqueror in the Marvel Cinematic Universe for the first time ever in this episode. Jed, what were your initial thoughts of Kang in the MCU?
Like, well, and it was just so crazy, how quirky, like Jonathan Majors did such a great job. Like, if I lived for a million years, like I can't imagine myself not being quirky at that point.
A little insane.
Yes. Like a little on edge, a little different. And I think he just portrayed that so well. And I think it just makes me excited because, like, the actual Kang the Conqueror character outside of He Who Remains is likely going to be like so different.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm so excited to see how he handles that, playing so many different characters essentially that are the same person.
Yeah, I think it will definitely feel very tonally, it will feel very different from like the Thanos saga that we've gotten. Yes. Where like Josh Brolin was very very one note. Like, we knew who Thanos was. Yes. Every time we saw him, we knew what to expect.
Right.
Kang is at his core is very different.
Right.
Like, he will show up, we hope so, in so many iterations and different, maybe
Yes.
speech patterns, or just all. The character is literally a myriad of different things.
Right.
So it'll really speak to Jonathan Majors' quality as an actor. Let's see how he brings this character to life in so many different ways.
Yep.
Let's talk about, so with the climax of this episode,
Yeah.
it's the finale, and we're led to this decision point where Loki and Sylvie are on the opposite sides of a decision to either kill He Who Remains or to take his spot.
Right.
So take me into you're watching this this conflict unfold between Loki and Sylvie. What were you thinking as that conflict is brewing and they fight and it leads up to that decision point? Take us inside Jed watching this episode.
Like, it's just such a, you try to understand it from the perspective of the characters. We probably have a decent understanding of, yeah, he's, it seems like he's telling the truth. But this, I mean, this is, they explained it so well that, Sylvie as a character, her trust issues are a core of who she is. And so, like, sitting there thinking, like, what if any of this is actually true? Like,
Yeah.
what can we actually take as, like, this is true, and this is, or is this all a ploy of his, of some master manipulation? Because we've never seen this character before. We know that he is a master manipulator already with the TVA and the things he's done there. And so, it's like, what is there to believe in this, versus, you know, what's going to happen, like. And so it's just, I think that was my first thing to wrestle with, is how, like, I was kept waiting for, like, there to be a giant twist of, like, they call him out or something, or, something is wrong, or, they find a flaw in his story, or, but it's just, the exposition was just so amazing, to sit there and listen to his backstory that hasn't happened yet technically in the place we're at in the MCU and stuff. But it's just, when you deal with time, it just bends your mind.
So okay, speaking of how they've handled time in this show, going into the show, I think we talked about this on my preview, but I don't remember exactly. Is it time travel and different timelines and multiverses? It initially feels very daunting.
Yes.
Like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to be confused the entire time.
Right.
And I don't really know how how is Marvel going to make this accessible to fans that don't care about the multiverses in comics. They don't care about the multiple timelines. How are they going to make this accessible?
Mm-hmm.
And I think Loki as a show, take Loki the character outside of this comment. Loki the TV show did such a good job of laying out how time works in the Marvel universe.
Right.
Now I feel like we have a foundation for all these other movies that are coming.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
I believe it was Kevin Feige said that Loki was going to change the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and now we know why.
Yes.
Now we know how that comes to fruition, because the timelines are now in a state of, I'm just going to say it, in a state of madness.
Right. Yes. Good choice of words.
So where do we go from here?
Well, I mean, and that's the thing, is literally anything is possible now. Prior to this, He Who Remains had everything locked in this single narrative. And so now, this is what is opening up to the What If series. This is opening up to, the rumors of No Way Home for Spider-Man, and bringing in all these different characters. Doctor Strange is the guardian of our reality. This greatly impacts him, and all these different areas that this is going to impact. I mean, it literally impacts everything.
Yeah.
And opens the door for literally anything.
So okay, let's talk a little bit about the next thing that we get on Disney Plus, because initially when the What If series got announced, I was like, okay, cool, it'll be like some anthology stories.
Right.
Like, they won't really have any bearing on the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They'll be just like fun things that happen, and they're bringing back some of the good actors. Like, it'll be Chadwick Boseman's last performance as T'Challa. Like, I'm just thinking of like these very like, kind of okay things about the show.
Right.
But now,
but they aren't. Because we didn't think they would be canon.
What If is totally changing in terms of importance for me, because like these stories are going to be like other existences that have been created from this warping of time that has just happened. So like, how do you think What If is going to play into maybe the canon timeline that we have?
Yeah, I'm not for sure exactly how it'll play out. I saw some fun things where maybe at like the end of every episode, the TVA shows up to like try and prune it or something.
Okay.
Just something funny like that. But like with some of the, I don't know. I don't know how that'll play in the main story arc of the AMCU. It might be, where if the storyline goes well, they might pull it out and, add it to the main live action story, which would be cool.
I'm telling you, if we get a live action Marvel Zombies movie, Kevin Feige, take my wallet, man. Like, here's my bank account number. Like, just give me Marvel Zombies in a live action movie.
Yeah.
So some of the next like properties that we have movie wise, like we have Multiverse of Madness, we have let's say properties that have been linked to Loki already, because like Shang-Chi really hasn't been linked to anything yet. Eternals has kind of sort of been linked to stuff, but we know that there's going to be multiverse tie-ins with Doctor Strange and Spider-Man, and possibly Love and Thunder coming out next year. We know there's going to be alternates in those movies already. So how do you see, with the movies going forward, how do you see the multiverse affecting those titles that have already been announced?
Well, I mean, I think that's like the next. That's like where it's going now. Is every movie, like those that you just listed, will have to touch on it. They will be greatly impacted, and will help further along that arc of dealing with this new multiverse that exists. And so, because although Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield haven't necessarily been confirmed yet, we do have confirmation of Alfred Molina, Doc Ock, and Jamie Foxx's Electro.
I'm so excited for Alfred Molina to come back and play Octavius.
Oh,
he is so great in that role.
Amazing. And so like those are going to have to directly talk about the multiverse and how that's impacted. And then another one we haven't talked about yet, the new Ant-Man, the Ant-Man and the Wasp.
I forgot Quantumania. I'm so sorry.
And that's the one where we thought Jonathan Majors was going to show up. He's been confirmed in that as Kang the Conqueror
for like the longest time.
Yes. And so that was the thing, is I don't think anybody was really expecting him to show up this early, because Quantumanium's not till 2023.
Yeah, it was time to wait for that movie.
And so so I think everything will be impacted, that deal with more cosmic things. And that's what I love about the MCU. I was thinking about this the other day, because we just had the Black Widow movie
so good
come out, and the concept of it and the tone of it are completely different than Loki.
Yes.
Dreykov, the bad guy in there, is nothing compared to He Who Remains or King the Conqueror. Yet in that movie, they do such a good job of getting you invested in the story that, you know, you're like, oh man, this horrible person, you know, and you're like drawn into this, you know. And
Yeah.
so it's just amazing that the MCU they can make a character like Black Widow, who's not as powerful, feel just as important as someone like Thor or Doctor Strange, who deal with quantum realities and cosmic, you know, wonders.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, because I mean, after seeing Black Widow, I was like, you know, I was like, okay, it was like Marvel does James Bond or James Bourne
Yeah.
or Jason Bourne.
Yep.
So I was like, okay, it's like a spy movie, because like there's almost no superpowers in that movie.
Right.
None. And so
Yeah.
really it's Marvel does a spy movie. And I was like, okay, this is great. Like but like even in that movie they talk about like, oh well they, in reference to Natasha, say like, well, you're not like one of the big ones.
Right. Yeah.
And they call that out, and they even like, there's even a great Thor reference in there where he's like, you know, I doubt the god of thunder has to take an aspirin after a fight.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
you know, she's just this normal hero. But bringing this back to the multiverse, so many of these characters are now going to be so relevant.
Yeah.
Like, I'll tell you what, as long as we're going like into like deep cuts of heroes that should never, maybe we assume they should never have gotten a movie, though I'm glad they are. I'll bet you no one could tell me that a Shang-Chi movie was coming.
Oh,
like
no.
10 years ago, they're like, oh hey, the master of kung fu, yeah, he's gonna have a movie. It'd be like, the who?
Right.
Wait, the what? I remember we went to the comic book store a few months ago, and we saw the Shang-Chi comics on the racks, and I was like, yeah, they weren't making this if you even, you know, years ago, you know,
Right.
maybe even decades ago. Like, he didn't have his own singles title. So the multiverse is expanding, and it's also expanding the offerings that we get from Marvel. We're getting
Yeah.
so many different heroes are being spotlighted, and you know, we're kind of shifting up the roster of the MCU. I mean, we haven't even talked about the Disney Plus shows that are coming. You know, we've got Miss Marvel coming. We've got,
Yes.
you know, obviously What If is coming. We've got Hawkeye coming. Like,
Yep.
there's so the world of Marvel is expanding, which even sounds insane because it was already big.
Right.
But bringing it back to Loki.
Yep.
Loki season 2.
Yeah.
The first time we get a follow-up to a Disney Plus season.
Right.
Just what do you expect out of season 2 of Loki?
Yeah, there's so many unanswered questions at the end of the episode, you know, so they have to figure out, you know, what's Sylvie gonna do. She's got He Who Remains temp pad, so she probably has more power than most people with the TVA and stuff at this point. You know, I imagine that temp pad can do more. And then you got, you know, Loki, who's in he's got to be in a different timeline of sorts. You know, because we had the King the Conqueror statue in the TVA, and Mobius and Hunter B-15 didn't recognize him,
which was so jarring, by the way.
Yeah,
like it's like, wait, hold on.
Yeah,
no,
you know,
thank you.
And so I do think, you know, Loki is going to play a huge role in preventing this next multiversal war. You know, I think they're going to change. I think it's been leading to, you know, what Kang did was he kept people in the same narrative. You know, Loki was always destined to lose. And they kind of addressed that at the beginning of the show. That is his fate. He's always destined to be the loser.
Yeah.
And I think that in season 2 they'll change that.
Okay.
That Loki will have a major role in preventing the multiversal war between the Kangs. And however his story ends, it will not be him as a loser.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. There's some other things that I was thinking about with how season 2 is gonna unfold. I am of the belief, and maybe we've talked about this off of the show, but I think that the TVA exists in the quantum realm.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah,
of
yeah.
I'm of that thought, and I think Quantumania, like just as Loki season 1 was essential to understanding where the MCU is going next, I think Quantumania is going to be that movie where like, oh my gosh, we're going to understand so much more even than we
Yes.
do right now.
Yep.
And I believe that Kang he's too big of a villain to not handle in an Avengers movie. Like,
Sure.
I do not think he will be defeated in like Multiverse of Madness or even Loki season 2 or Quantumania. He's, to me, he's too big for that.
Yeah, agreed.
I would love if all of this ended, if Kang's, conquest ended in an Avengers Forever movie based on the storyline from comics. Like, Avengers Forever would be an awesome way to cap off his story and the Avengers come together because he's an Avengers level threat. Like,
Right. Oh yeah.
you know, just like Thanos and Ultron and those villains. Like, I personally, my theory is it ends in an Avengers Forever kind of based story
Yeah.
story in a movie. But here's how I'm gonna wrap this up, because honestly, I could talk about Loki for hours, and I want to know one last thing.
Yeah.
Does Mobius get his jet ski eventually?
I was gonna bring that up. I was so disappointed that there was nothing at the end of this, and so I think they have to pay that off.
Yes, it's the, what is it, the Chekhov's gun or something like that, like
Yeah.
where if you see it in the first act, it has to go off in the third.
Yes.
Like, Owen Wilson needs to ride off into the sunset on a jet ski, and that needs to be how Mobius ends.
Yes. Yep.
Like, no, there's no other way that character gets sent off. Also, the fact that they didn't let Owen Wilson say "wow" the entire season,
Right.
ridiculous.
Yep.
But Jed, any other parting shots? I mean, we've gone 20 plus, and this is the longest review we've done yet. So
Yeah.
I don't want to cut you off though. Like, is there any other thoughts about Loki this season? Yikes, wow, all of it. Like, any other thoughts you have before we wrap this up and we move on to our outro, and then the roundtable discussion next week, which I hope you're able to come and be a part of. Like, anything else that you want to say to listeners today?
Yeah. No, I think what was amazing about this show in general is just some of the inspirations that you can see played out in it. The Wizard of Oz with the man behind the curtain.
Yes.
The Willy Wonka with kind of the trial between Loki and Sylvie to see if they would be the ones to take over. There's just some amazing inspirations that led into this. And I also, just one other random thought today. I don't know if you've ever seen The Adjustment Bureau, Matt Damon.
I saw it a long time ago. Yeah.
If you think back to the plot of that movie, it's actually eerily similar to the plot of Loki.
Okay. Yeah. I see it.
And so I was thinking about that today when I was getting ready to, be on the show with you or whatever. And I was like, oh, wow, that's kind of funny. And so, which is also ironic because it stars Anthony Mackie as well.
Right.
But no, I thought this was an amazing season. I would put, so far out of the 3 MCU shows what we've gotten, I think I would put Loki at the top of them.
Okay.
So far. So
yeah, I mean, I will say this. They are all significant and distinct in their own ways.
Oh yeah, yes.
And like WandaVision is totally different, and yes. Falcon and Winter Soldier is totally different, and Loki is definitely different. But yeah, Loki is they hit a home run. They hit an absolute freaking home run with this show. Can't wait to see what comes next. Jed, man, I always, like, just friend to friend, I always love talking Marvel movies with you. This truly joy of our friendship, and it's been this way for 7 years now. I mean, and I'll always remember us, picking apart Iron Man 3 till like 3 a.m. in the morning or something like that.
Yes.
But hey, man, thanks for being on the show. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Sounds good, man.
That does it for the show today, everybody. I hope you enjoyed part 2 of our conversation with Mackenzi Lee. She was so much fun to chat with. She told some great stories. So I want you to go support her by buying one of her books, whether it's Loki, Where Mischief Lies, or her new book, Sisters in Arms, the book about Gamora and Nebula. Go buy one of those books, support her, and she's doing great work. So really follow her on Instagram at Mackenzi Lee. She's a great follow. She puts up a lot of stuff with her books and her life. Seriously, just a great person, a great conversation. And thanks to my buddy Jed coming on and talking the finale of Loki. That was so much fun. We love talking Marvel together. So that was super enjoyable, and I hope you enjoyed our conversation as well. Some great ways you can support the show. Again, go to iTunes, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. We would appreciate anything you have to say about the show, whether it's a compliment or whether it's a criticism. We always want to make the show better. So be sure to go do that. Follow us on Spotify, and then go over to social media and follow us on Instagram at ACROSS THE BIFROST. Again, reminder, we have a great, big, massive show next Monday that you want to be a part of. So if you want your voice heard about Loki and our roundtable discussion that me and the reviewers are going to come back and do, go to the link in this episode's description and leave us a voice message. We will put it on the show, and your voice will be heard next week, next Monday, on our roundtable discussion. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Always enjoy when you come aboard the Rainbow Bridge with us and spend some time with us. Can't wait for the next time that you're going to jump on the Rainbow Bridge and learn something new about Thor's world with us. Until then, have a great day and stay worthy.